Okay, get ready to dig in because this deep dive is all about the future of food.
Hmm. Sounds delicious.
You sent us a ton of articles on this, so clearly you're really fascinated by what we'll be eating in the future.
And you are in for a treat. You've really zeroed in on some groundbreaking innovations, but also some huge, like really huge challenges too.
No pressure or anything, right?
Right. But we are talking lab-grown meat, vertical farms, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so before we solve world hunger, I gotta ask,
What's that?
are you hungry? I kinda am. All this talk about the future of food is making me hungry.
Well, let's just say that based on all this research you sent us, the future is looking surprisingly edible.
I like it. So let's dive into these articles you sent, especially those about lab-grown meat. It seems like every day there's a new headline about it. What's the deal with these burgers from a beaker?
Yeah, those articles you sent do a great job of laying the groundwork. Okay, so imagine this. Scientists are actually taking tiny samples of animal cells and basically, like, tricking them.
Tricking them. How so?
Well, they trick them into multiplying in these, like, special tanks. I think they are called bioreactors. And then voila, you've got meat without needing a farm at all.
Okay, I have to admit, that does sound kind of sci-fi. But you said these articles highlight the good and the bad, so to speak. So what's the catch?
Well, do you remember that piece you sent from, I think it was Mosa Meat?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Well, they are predicting that once lab-grown meat production is scaled up, it would cost about, get this, $80 per kilogram. Now, that is a huge leap, but
$80 a kilo is still pretty steep for most people. Are we talking like gourmet steaks for the wealthy, or will this trickle down to my local grocery store?
that's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, your articles explore that tension between lab-grown meat possibly revolutionizing food production and then this accessibility issue.
I guess it's like any new tech. Remember when flat-screen TVs first hit the market? They were so pricey, but now everyone has one. Is that what we are hoping will happen with this lab-grown meat?
That's the idea, but this isn't a TV. We are talking about something way more important, food. I mean, think about it. And the articles you sent do a great job of digging into all the ethics and economics of it all. Really important stuff.
Lots to unpack, that's for sure. But you know what else I found interesting in all this? Vertical farms. Now that sounds like something straight out of a futuristic movie, doesn't it?
It's funny you say that because the article from Aero Farms, they really painted a picture for me.
In a good way.
Oh yeah, in a good way. They're leading the pack in this tech, and their farms are just like you'd picture these sleek towers growing everything from lettuce to strawberries, all without using any soil.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. But these skyscrapers churning out produce, that's got to be more than just a cool image, right? Like, what's the advantage of going vertical?
Right. It's not just about looking cool. I mean, that article from The Economist you sent, it said that some vertical farms are producing like 20 times more food, and they're using the same space as traditional farms. Plus, no pesticides, you need less water, and you can like perfectly control the growing conditions all year long.
So you're saying it's super efficient and better for the planet? To me, that sounds like a win-win. But okay, I'm picturing these high-tech farms in the middle of cities, and we all know that land in the city is expensive. So is my head of lettuce going to cost me an arm and a leg?
That is the other side of things, for sure. That article you flagged, the one from the World Economic Forum, it really digs into those economics. Like, yeah, right now, it's pretty expensive to set up one of these vertical farms and run it. But the exciting thing is, as tech gets better and those costs come down, vertical farming could be within reach for a lot more people.
Makes sense. You got to learn to walk before you can run a vertical farm marathon, I guess. But this talk about how we are going to feed everyone, it reminds me that it's not just about having cool technology. We've got to make sure there's enough food for everyone on the planet. And speaking of enough food, one number from those articles really stuck with me. 10 billion.
Yeah, 10 billion people by 2050. It's mind-blowing, really, and it definitely lights a fire under you in terms of how important these innovations are. And it's more than just the number of people, right? It's also about where those people live.
You're talking about urbanization,
Yeah.
all those people moving from the country into cities, right? A few of the articles mention that. So how does that change what we eat?
That is exactly what that UN study looked at. It's fascinating. They found that as cities get bigger, they become these like melting pots of different food cultures. But people are also eating more processed food, so it's this weird paradox. This foodie culture is growing at the same time as we are relying more on convenience food.
So it's like we're trying to figure out how to feed everyone, but the world is changing at the same time, right?
Totally. And it gets even more complicated when you throw in things like climate change and water
Oh,
shortages.
yeah, those are big ones that came up in a bunch of these articles, too. It's like we're trying to cook dinner, but the kitchen's on fire.
A very accurate analogy. But, these articles weren't all doom and gloom.
What do you mean?
I mean, what really struck me was how much emphasis there was on finding solutions.
Oh, right, like what?
Well, this idea of sustainable agriculture, you had that great article from The Guardian about that.
Right, yeah. So what does sustainable agriculture even look like in real life? I mean, is it more than just composting and shopping at farmers markets?
Those things help, for sure, but that article you sent highlighted some really cool high-tech stuff,
Like what?
like precision agriculture, where they're using sensors and artificial intelligence to, like, fine-tune everything.
Everything like what?
Like how much water and fertilizer they use. That way, they can grow more food and use less resources.
So we're giving farmers, like, superpowers.
Exactly. They don't need capes. They've got data and algorithms. But it's not just about tech either. It's about changing how we think about the entire system of how we get our food. Remember that article from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation?
Yeah, vaguely. Refresh my memory.
It was all about something called the circular economy of food, this idea that we should try to create a closed loop and minimize waste.
Oh, right, yeah. Which reminds me, we have to talk about food waste. Some of those stats in these articles were really shocking.
Yeah, they were. That FAO report said something like a third of all the food produced globally gets wasted.
A third. That's insane.
It's terrible. Such a waste. And it's awful for the environment, too.
I know, but what can we even do about it at home? It seems like such a huge problem.
It's easy to feel that way, but remember that New York Times piece he sent? It had some really good tips, like just planning your meals out, using leftovers in new ways, and paying attention to those expiration dates. Small things like that can make a difference.
So it's about being more thoughtful about what we do with our food at home, making sure we don't waste it, right?
Right. If we all just make a few changes, it can have a real impact. Plus, when you waste less food, you save money.
Now you're speaking my language. This has been great, by the way. It really feels like everything is connected, like what we decide to eat actually has a real impact on the world.
That's it. And I think going through all these articles with you has really highlighted that.
Yeah. It's not just about all the amazing technology out there, though it is cool, but about understanding how it all fits together.
Well said.
Going through these articles with you has been a real eye-opener. It feels like we just dipped our toes into this topic, but in a good way. Like there is so much to learn.
Well, you sure sent a fascinating collection of articles, so mission accomplished. And hopefully this deep dive has given you the tools you need to navigate the future of food. I know I'm feeling more informed, that's for sure.
Me too. And maybe even a little hopeful. I mean, there are huge challenges, but we've also seen this incredible wave of new ideas and more people who want to do things better.
Yeah, I like that. You've got to be optimistic.
Right. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of food. Until next time.